Tangibilisco here, proprietor and operator of amateur radio station W1GV. Da 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 da. At your service to tell you another story about my days at W1AW as a W1AW operator. They called them operators, but what we really were station attendants. And I believe I do remember my exact hours now. It was it was a 4-day work week that they had back then. And my work week was 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Friday. Then 1 o'clock 3 o'clock p.m. to 1 o'clock in the morning. No, it was 1 to about 11 p.m. or something like that on Saturday and Sunday. I guess I don't remember the exact hours. And Monday, the same. It totaled 37 and a half hours a week. My starting salary back then in 1977 was $7,150 a year. And yet I found a way to not only make ends meet, but to accumulate a savings account as well. No matter. The point of the story is that I used to go home to visit my folks in Rochester, Minnesota, and there was a flight that went from Hartford through Buffalo, New York, and then directly on to Rochester. I remember once when the aircraft had some troubles and we had to land and get another aircraft, and we got in really late. It was a Thursday night and I had to be up at 7 in the morning and work at that station. Well, I used to have a cereal I liked called Kasha. You would boil it and it would make this kind of a mash, almost like mashed potatoes, but more coarse. I also had an ounce of cannabis, back then called pot, I believe, and I cooked a little bit of that cannabis in there with the Kasha that morning. I was exhausted when I got back, and I thought, well, if I'm going to be exhausted, I might as well be really exhausted today. And indeed I was, because I must have miscalculated the amount of effect that cooking a certain amount of cannabis would have in a bowl of Kasha. And I hardly remember a moment of that workday, except that I got through, I didn't get fired, I didn't do anything stupid, and I had to show people around. I had to show visitors around. That was in large measure my work on a Friday. And I don't know how on God's earth I managed to get through that day, but I did. And I learned something. When you cook cannabis, especially into something like cereal or brownies, it doesn't have the same effect as it has when you smoke it. I haven't used the stuff since I lived in Connecticut. That's a long, long time ago, almost 40 years. But it's illegal here in South Dakota. It was illegal there too, but they took it a little more lightly if they caught you. Here in South Dakota, don't you dare try it. And I don't, because I have enough trouble getting the equations in my book straight as it is without adding something like that. The benzodiazepines are bad enough. This is worse. But in any case, I felt no pain that day. I thought nothing. I prayed nothing. I did nothing except get through that day and do my job somehow normally, despite the weight of the exhaustion from that aircraft delay, getting in at 3 a.m. and eating that stuff. I was a cynical young bastard back then. I also qualified for the 40 word a minute code speed qualifying run one night after having just finished an 8-ounce glass of gin without even any ice in it. I said, I'm so good, I can do this drunk. And I pounded out 2 solid minutes on my typewriter, turned it in without a typo, and they gave me my certificate, long since lost. Those are stories from W1AW, at which I worked from early 1977 until late 1978. And those were good times, they were simple times. But that wasn't a challenging job. I had to go on to challenges later. And I sure did. Stan Gibilisco, proprietor and operator of W1GV, signing off saying 73, which means best regards in ham radio jargon. And so long for now, which means da-da-da-da-da-da.